So our first question for you, John, is what are your thoughts about Wānaka Airport?
Yeah, that's been something that's been on my mind for a long time, Mark. I got quite involved in particularly talking with Mike Ross over the whole situation. He and I had worked together previously on similar issues in local government, and I was fully supportive of what the community was doing. You know, my line has been consistently that communities shouldn't have to sue their local authority to do the right thing. Wānaka needs an airport, and the airport has got a lot of potential to better meet the needs of Wānaka people and the wider district. The way that was done was just reprehensible, and on my watch, that the sort of thing will not be allowed to occur again.
Thank you. What do you think were the key learnings from the High Court ruling about Wānaka Airport?
Well, there's a requirement for local authorities to meet the comprehensive wellbeing needs of their communities and to consult with them on, particularly on strategic issues, but we need to communicate with our communities all of the time. The process, in fact, the way that Queenstown Airport Corporation and the council, various councils, have worked together over the last 20 years or so in particular, and that time frame, has often been, far too often, hidden from our communities. There needs to be far more transparency in everything that we do. There's no need for non-disclosure agreements in most cases for this sort of work. And we need to take the communities along, in fact, wherever possible, have communities lead decisions about what happens with our key infrastructure, particularly when it's so critical to what we do as a community, let alone as an economy. So we need to be much more open and honest in our dealings around that. That was a main learning. We need to do the job that local authorities are supposed to be there for.
Great. I've got a couple of yes/no questions throughout the thing. This is the first one of them. Have you read the High Court judgment yourself?
Yeah, I did when it first came out, and I had a quick scan of your notes again today on that. So I haven't looked in detail recently, so it's not fully at front of mind.
Great. How do you otherwise keep yourself informed about airport issues?
So often talking to people who are involved. So I had a good chat with Mike recently and some other residents in Wānaka. I'm over in Wānaka at least a day a week at the moment. I prefer it was more, and if I'm there, it would be a couple of days a week. But also, there's been pretty good media coverage of it, really. I'm often not that enamored or happy with the local media on issues, but on the airport stuff, they've represented it quite well. I do have some players in the air transport sector, so I talk to them and use them as a sounding board too. But I think it's what the community thinks is probably most important here, whether they're community groups or businesses. So I keep my ear to the ground on that, Mark.
Did you read the Martin Jenkins report when it came out?
Oh, yeah. I did, and it says yes/no answer. Sorry, yes, I did, but I'm disappointed and have been, along with many things, that these reports have not surfaced at council. They haven't been considered by council, and including some bigger picture issues too. It's I just cannot fathom how the culture of an organisation that is supposed to be open and community focused shuts down consideration of options and consequences like that.
You've partially answered some of the questions I'm about to ask you, but I'm going to ask you the same as everyone else. Who do you believe should determine the future evolution of Wānaka Airport?
Primarily the communities of the Upper Clutha, really. There's a bigger picture too. One of the things I think we need to be doing more of is taking more of a regional approach to air transport. Primarily it's the Wānaka community, but it has bigger implications than that. And the benefit of having better services out of Wānaka Airport would mean that people wouldn't need to drive over to Queenstown, try and find a park somewhere near Queenstown Airport, fly to wherever they want, and then come back again. So there's opportunities to improve the whole district and wider by having a more informed and progressive approach to what we do with our airports. Some are suggesting there should be no development of any of our airports at all, and I find that problematic because we need to change it, not the least with new technology. So we need to take that on board. But yeah, it should be the Wānaka and Upper Clutha community that should largely determine that.
What do you know, if anything, about the Wānaka Airport Liaison Committee?
Oh, and other myths. Yeah, it needs to be established. That, you know, one of many things that Queenstown Lakes District Council has not delivered on, and that would be easy to do. In fact, if it had been delivered on, we probably wouldn't have been anywhere near the situation we got into. So that needs to happen. If I'm elected as mayor, and as long as we've got a progressive council, even if we didn't get rapid consensus in council, that's something that I would make happen. And I'd like to be the first QLDC representative on that, along with the community board chair or whomever from the community board, because it's that important that we need to make sure that it works and openly. Yeah.
So you've actually answered the next question. I'm not going to ask that to you. You answered every element of it. The question after that is, what do you see as being the key issues or considerations driving the airport's future?
Wānaka Airport's future? Well, it's the need for Wānaka to be connected to the rest of the world, you know, and the rest of the country predominantly, because I don't envisage, and that's where the, you know, major concerns were about potential development of Wānaka Airport, that it's going to be the arrival and departure point for wide-body jets from all over the planet. It should be, I think, as the community have been saying, you know, it's a relatively small but highly functional commuter airport connecting Wānaka to other parts of the country, to enable Wānaka to be a really nice, effective, relatively environmentally friendly and sustainable community, as well as economy. It's got huge, Wānaka Upper Clutha has got huge potential, and possibly too much as far as growth is concerned, and that's something I am concerned about. We do need to manage down growth, particularly in the tourism sector, maintaining a more sustainable tourism economy, but not the projected growth we've had in the past. And Wānaka Airport has a key role to play in that for the community.
Great, thank you. You mentioned the word sustainability, so the next question chimes nicely. What's your stance on carbon emissions, and what should QLDC do? Please be as specific as you can.
Yeah, so we should be pursuing and making it clear to Queenstown Airport Company, and that corporations are in its ownership of Queenstown Airport and management of Wānaka Airport into the future, that they should be looking to not encourage at all increases in carbon emissions from flights coming to and leaving from our airports. At the moment, they are only considering the on-site carbon. That's easy done. In fact, we could do a whole lot more there. I've talked with the CEO of Queenstown Airport Corporation. I'm really keen on having solar panels all over all the car parks so that we can contribute to resilience of our local electricity network and supply. But that's minor compared with the amount of carbon that's produced by long-haul flights. So I'm really keen. I was at the launch of the Sounds Air service a couple of years ago. Those sort of things, particularly the drive to electric commuter flights capability in the next decade or so, the more of that we have, the better. But we really need to be conscious about the carbon from long-haul flights, and we need to be looking to influence the market to bring that down, and we can.
Great, thank you. What's your position on the proposed new airport at Terrace?
Yeah, I've been really interested in air transport in Central Otago, Queenstown Lakes for about 30 years, since before I worked at Central Otago District Council, back when Wānaka Community Board was threatening to secede from QLDC and join us in CODC. I think we need to take a regional approach to these things. I can't see how Terrace Airport stacks up. In particular, if wide-body jets are going to be coming in there, that means they'll be flying further to get to New Zealand, to an airport in New Zealand than they would if they were hubbing through Auckland, and then more efficient flights went from there. So I don't see how it economically stacks up. It certainly doesn't stack up environmentally. It is in Central Otago District, so it is something that we don't have direct influence over. We can influence it. So as mayoral candidate, something I picked up on just the last few days, we need to be careful about what we say, because if we say something really strongly that no, there's no way that this can happen, as several candidates are doing, That indicates predetermination, and it means if we have an opportunity to be involved in that decision making, and we might do if it ever gets to the point where there is a hearing, and we might maybe a hearing commissioners on that. If we've already said what our view is, we can't be involved. Predetermination. So that's been a bit disappointing that people don't understand what governance means in these contexts.
Thank you for that answer. What do you see as the role of the Wānaka Community Board, and where should it fit within council?
Yeah, so that's something I've been, I worked for QLDC back in 2012-13, working on emergency management, spent a lot of time in Wānaka when Lyle Cox was chair. And at that point, already the role of the community board was degrading from where it had been. And that's not right. The communities of the Upper Clutha need to be well represented, and they need to be able to have the delegated authority that they should have. They need to be supported in doing so. There needs to be an appreciable staffing presence, management presence in the Wānaka area, so that the community board is supported in what it does. The approach of managing out of Queenstown's not effective. I also want to look to spread the risk of where we have our centre. So at the moment, we've got just about everyone in downtown Queenstown. I'd like to see more of that shifted out, probably to Frankton or even towards Lake Hayes, but certainly have a presence much more than there currently is in the Wānaka area. So when an emergency happens, and when we're trying to do connect with our communities, it happens with people who know Wānaka in Wānaka. That's not the case sufficiently at present. We've got to invest in that and do so well into the future.
Thank you. So I said there were 10 questions. There's actually an 11th bonus question,
Great.
Which is just to give you the chance to say what you'd like to address the people of Wānaka, for a minute, 2 minutes, whatever, just to get a message across. So the floor is yours.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, the reason I'm standing is that I'm from this community. I was born in Queenstown. I spent a lot of time in Wānaka over the 5 decades or so of my life, and I really value it as a place and a group of communities. It's different from Queenstown and the Wakatipu Basin, and it needs to stay different, and it's growing differently in different ways. I love it. What we need to do as a council is connect much better with our communities. I want to make better use not only of the community board, but of the community associations and business groups, and use the leadership that's there to build the leadership of our entire communities across the board. We can represent the interests of Queenstown Lakes more effectively if we're doing it together. And there's some talented people out there that their talent is not yet being tapped sufficiently to get us doing things more effectively. QLDC has some major issues that it's dealing with. We've got the COVID crisis and the response to it, which has really hit our economies and our communities hard. Queenstown Lakes District Council doesn't have a plan to recover from that, to enable our communities to recover. I do disaster management and disaster recovery. That's what I'm going to push for, to have a clear plan about where we're going in the future to make the most of the opportunities that come from this situation. We've got a financial crisis looming in QLDC, not the least with another leaky building claim coming in June next year, and that at this point is said to be probably $160 million. That's serious money. We need to consider what we're going to do to deal with that, and that means reviewing our expenditure. I don't think Wānaka gets enough investment. Gets at the moment about 300 million from the getting close to 2 billion investment over 10 years. That's not balanced compared with the rate of growth and the need in Wānaka. We need to balance that. And we've got the issues of housing affordability, staff housing, and transport issues. The whole district has not been served well. There's some really good initiatives happening in both of those. Boy, they're better than when I was a kid and a teenager living in the district. But there's so much more that we can do, working collaboratively with the other agencies to bring forward some of the good solutions and not rely on tech solutions that are simply not available, would be unaffordable, that some other candidates are talking about. Housing, we can address that quickly. There's some really good stuff we can do. I think we need to have a growth management strategy that uses the district plan and rating to have a different set of settings to make our economy thrive, enable our economy to thrive, but be more stable and ensure that we've got affordable housing for staff. And then we've got all of the reforms that are coming through from government. So I'm really enjoying not being directly involved with any political parties at all through this. And I can be very critical of what the government's doing because I understand some of it from the inside out. We need to push back on many of those things and make the most of them when they do happen, because there are some opportunities for us to, and not the least in balancing our budget. I need to do that with the communities, with the new council. There's some good people who are putting their hands up for that, and not the least out of the Wānaka Upper Clutha area. I'm looking forward to working with them to build a really strong team, to then bring a team from our communities together and have a more sustainable community and environmentally focused future for the whole of Queenstown Lakes District Council.
Great, thanks, John. I'm just going to stop the recording.